So I want to shift our conversation a little bit now and away from health and a little bit into the environmental reasons for becoming a vegetarian as well. Do you find the environmental reasons compelling? I know you're really coming at it from a health point of view, but what are your thoughts on the environmental side of things?
I initially came at it from a health point of view, and in my work, it's a health point of view. I do think, though, that the environmental concern is huge when we start talking about the meat industry. With the meat industry and the environment, there are two main things to think about. It's basically the resources that are used to produce meat and dairy and fish and eggs. It's an amazing amount of land that's put aside for this. Not only, the animals where they're kept, but the feed that's grown for them. So we have so many acres put aside to grow GMO corn and soy for the feed for these animals. And with the genetically modified seeds that are being used, well, that's going to be used with synthetic fertilizers, and it's going to be used with massive amounts of pesticides, because the seeds are meant to be used with pesticides. They are what are called poison drinking plants. That's what the GMO seeds create, so that the plants can be sprayed massively, everything around them dies, and the plant lives on. So they have a huge pesticide residue left on them, also spewed out into the environment. And so you have lots of land being devoted to that. You have the government, which subsidizes the meat industry and provides land for grazing for free or for a very low charge. Overgrazing is turning a lot of pastures and ranges into desert. The amount of water used to produce animal products, like meat and dairy products, is astounding. I was actually at a play on a couple of days ago, and it was about a revolutionary in modern times. And she made a statement that to produce 1 pound of beef takes the same amount of water that would hydrate a human being for a decade. Well hydrate a human being. And I was like, that's an amazing thing to hear. So I looked it up, and that was actually a conservative estimate. As I began to look into it, I've read anywhere from 2,500 gallons of water to produce a pound of meat, all the way up to a more reputable source, which is, his name is David Pimentel, and he's a PhD at Cornell University. He is a professor of ecology and also agricultural studies, and he puts the very specific number on it of 12,009 gallons to produce 1 pound of beef. And just to give you an idea of how much that is, if you were to take a 7-minute shower every day for 2 years, that would equal your 1 pound of beef.
1 pound?
1 pound.
Of beef.
12,009 gallons.
That is shocking.
Shocking. And in a state, we're in California, where we're in drought, we're in a drought, that's not a good use of resources. It's just not. So you have the resources that are being used environmentally, which is crazy, and then you also have what's being spewed out into the environment as a result of the meat industry. And so, of course, like I said, we have this pesticide use, but we also have, the dead zones that are created in the ocean. We have these huge areas of the ocean that are called dead zones, where it's very high acid in the ocean, and it's also low oxygen. And this is a result of the synthetic fertilizers washing into the rivers and coming out into the ocean, and also the manure that comes from these factory farms. And so no fish can live in these areas. And as you know, the UN came out with a report called The Long Shadow of the Meat Industry. Says that
long shadow of livestock.
Livestock. Okay, long shadow of livestock.
Yeah.
That the meat industry is the main producer of greenhouse gas emissions. So thinking about, we think about, I'm going to drive a better car, a more efficient car, but it's really the biggest impact you can have is adopting a plant-based diet, because they are the main producer.
Yeah, I read in that report that it's 40% more CO2 gases are produced than all cars, trains, airplanes, all transportation put together. So, yeah, adopting a vegetarian or vegan diet is the #1 way that you can help the environment if you feel that's important.